This is a reading of what I call the new global deal of the century. And I want to make it as an open message by the citizen, the Arab citizen, Talal Abu-Ghazaleh, addressing the Arab nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I could not stop myself from giving my point of view on the G7 show that we have watched over 3 days ago. Played out on the UK stage. Let me start by explaining what the G7 are. Not because I know something you don't know, but because I want to describe them from my perspective. The G7 group, as they are known as the great 7 nations of the world, the great economies of the free world, the great economic leaders of the world, and many other attributes, and particularly lately as the great democracies of the world. These countries are seen as the flagships of modern democracy and include America, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, and Italy. I personally believe they are ignoring adding a prefix to their name, the Western. I would accept that these are the Western great 7 countries or economies, because I don't see among them any of the nations that is not an ally of America. So they can be also called the Western Alliance. Notably, they account for 10% of the world population, yet claim to represent the interests of the world at large, or at least so they did at the G7 meeting in Cornwall this week. How can this be where countries such as China, Russia, India are not included as the great or among the great countries of the world? And where are China and Russia in these negotiations on behalf of the world? It seems that the G7, as they call themselves, is only a selective Occidental hegemony of states with no room for those with a divergent opinion. Democracy, it seems, is just a mantra played to exclude those with governance systems of different gender. Talks of vaccination against COVID have been basic during this summit. Yet those who have been vaccinated in poor countries of the world is less than the population of the town of Cornwall where the summit was held. How ironic. And we cannot and should not forget that the largest and oldest democracy in the world is India. And you cannot talk about great democracies without including India. American-British partnership and the partnership with the private sector is a very clear principle of this meeting. We saw how Act 1 of this political satire started with a meeting between Biden and Johnson, where they both reiterated what I have always said about the special and the only special relationship America has, which is with the UK. Just the same as the Russian-Chinese relationship. At this meeting, Biden stood alongside in a press conference the CEO of Pfizer, hailing the company as the savior of the world, praising American technology and its people's spirit of generosity and sacrifice. The laborers are sacrificing their lives at the industry centers to deliver the vaccine in record time to save the world from COVID. Biden added at that press conference that US, in partnership with Pfizer, I repeat, will buy 500 million doses and donate them to the world's poorer countries. This world, where vaccination rate is currently 85 in the rich countries and a mere 3% in poor ones. Ladies and gentlemen, it is all about the economy. It is about the economy of the United States of America. Not the coronavirus, nor humanity. Don't let the rhetoric fool you. The compassionate US will lead you all without discrimination and without conditions, because the US knows what is best for you. In my view, it is the trillions of dollars that the US companies have made in the course of this epidemic and what they will make and continue to make until it's over is the real subject on the agenda. The US, along with its G7 allies, will continue to milk the COVID cash and sow it into the future under a humanitarian narrative. This has already led to a growth rate expected in the US economy of more than 6% and probably more as the conveniences of this epidemic grow. When I said from the beginning that it was necessary to vaccinate all humans, I asked that this task be entrusted to the World Health Organization, WHO. Why did Biden choose to decide that it should be a donation from him to the poor countries? Out of tenderness and love of the G7 summit countries? Or is there an agenda to divide the world into two camps, the givers and the needy? Is this really the future of the world? Moreover, how do the Chinese and Russian vaccines fit into all of this? Coronavirus will live with us around the world until at least end of 2022. So did Biden announce, finally, in the name of the United States of America. He expected that coronavirus would not end also unless all humans on this globe were vaccinated. And he set a deadline for this by 2022. He announced at the summit that he wants to vaccinate every human being on the planet. This will see the US coffers overflow at the expense of all of us. Those who follow my articles would remember that in the first few months of the epidemic, I said similarly that we would have to live with the coronavirus for at least 4 years. I was then accused, among other things, of being pessimistic. Now we hear at the summit also about the pledge of about $30 billion to be allocated to preventive research for epidemics and to produce vaccines for these epidemics within 100 days of their appearance. It's well known that medications usually need years of laboratory research and work to be produced, and will then undergo strict rounds of safety testing. Is this pledge for new viruses, or is it for variants of the current one? Or is it to counteract the negative effects of the current vaccine? I ask you also, to whom and for what was this pledge made? Now, we need in vaccine doses 11 billion vaccines, not 1 billion only, as the G7 summit pledged. Also, why did we all, including the G7, stayed silent until now and did not announce what is internationally known to scholars, that the vaccine will stay 4 years? Why didn't Biden announce that if we want to vaccinate all humans, we will need 11 billion doses, not only 1 billion, as the summit pledged? It was surprising that the US president repeated the number 1 billion and the US contribution of $500 million so many times. He kept saying, we will donate $500 million, $500 million, as if it is the solution, while the half or the full billion represent a small fraction of what world population needs. Why didn't we know or hear from President Biden how much money these doses will generate for the US economy? He also didn't say who would foot the bill for these doses, while we are still waiting for the outcomes of the summit. I believe we will become more confused and will never understand the financials of this opaque arrangement. I'm also wondering, where are China, Russia, India, and other countries in all of this? With the world's greatest 7 democratic countries meeting in this summit, it is so ironic that they forgot to include the world's oldest democracy and the largest democracy, whose population is close to the sum of all the citizens of the G7. The attendees of the summit forgot the non-Western Chinese and Russian economies and vaccines. But that's another story. We were glad to hear at this summit that America is back. And we will see more of Biden's US leadership of the world in the implementation of this slogan, which he adopted, America is back, rather than Trump's slogan, America first. I say this because I see that the purpose of this summit and the subject at the top of this agenda is how to close and strengthen the ranks of the Western alliance led by America in the face of Russia and China, especially against the Belt and Road Initiative of China. It is a tough job for Biden and the US to close the ranks of the Western alliance because of historical American-European differences. This is an important story that we need to return to, as the leadership of the world is the business of all of us and of the entire world, because we are what is going to be led by the leaders. The project of vaccination will lead to prosperity of the Western economies. The G7 countries, led by America and Britain, have devised and launched a plan to get out the stifling economic crisis they are experiencing through this vaccine deal of the century, or historic deal, as Biden called it. They will see their economies boom at the expense of the whole world. And we will have no option but to accept as spectators in this game of global profiteering. There will be winners and losers in this plan by the time it achieves its goals, even if it is wrapped with the coating of humanity concerns. It will be interesting to see how this story unfolds on the world stage. Wait and see. See you in 2022, as President Biden has promised. Thank you.